In my previous video, I talked about the Medjugorje seers Vishka and Yakov's experience of heaven, which they claimed they were physically taken to. They described it as a vast garden full of light, flowers, and people, with no sign of God or the Trinity. I compared it to St. John Bosco's vision describing heaven to show just how bizarre it really was, and how ludicrous the idea is that anyone could be physically taken to heaven without being struck dead by its magnificence. In this video, we're going to dive into the seer's description of Purgatory, a place Vishka also claims to have physically visited, and contrast it with the testimony of visionary St. Catherine of Genoa. Vishka. Purgatory is an endless space of ashy color. It was quite dark. I could feel people strangling and suffering there. The Blessed Mother told us we should be praying for souls stranded in purgatory. She said only our prayers and sacrifices can release them from that place. The people there are helpless. They are really suffering. We can be like Jesus a little bit if we just do some voluntary penance for the souls in purgatory, especially for the ones who are abandoned by their families on earth. I am aware of their suffering. I know some of their torment, and I know how desperately they need our prayers. They are so lonely that it is almost sickening to remember those moments I was there. It is really a great joy to do penance for the poor souls because I know how much it helps them, and many of our family members who have died desperately need our prayers. The Blessed Mother says we must pray courageously for them so that they might go to heaven. They are powerless to help themselves. Mirjana, many people were there. They were suffering immensely. They were normal people, all kinds. There was much physical suffering. I could see the people shivering, thrashing, and writhing in pain. I could not hear them. I only saw them. The Blessed Mother said so many people who die are quite abandoned by their loved ones. They cannot help themselves in purgatory. They are totally dependent on the prayers and sacrifices of the generous people on earth who remember them. Maria. Purgatory is a large place. It is foggy. It is ash-gray. It is misty. You cannot see people there. It is as if they are immersed in deep clouds. You can feel that the people in the mist are traveling, hitting each other. They can pray for us, but not for themselves. They desperately are in need of our prayers. The Blessed Mother asks us to pray for the poor souls in purgatory because during their lifetime, one moment they thought there was no God, then they recognized Him, then they went to purgatory where they saw there is a God, and now they need our prayers. With our prayers, we can send them to heaven. The biggest suffering that souls in purgatory have is that they see there is a God, but they did not accept Him here on earth. Now they long so much to come close to God. Now they suffer so intensely because they recognize how much they have hurt God, how many chances they had on earth, and how many times they disregarded God. The following are excerpts from St. Catherine of Genoa's treatise on purgatory. This holy soul found herself, while still in the flesh, pierced by the fiery love of God in purgatory, which burnt her, cleansing whatever in her needed cleansing, to the end that when she passed from this life, she might be presented to the sight of God, her dear love. By means of this loving fire, she understood in her soul the state of the souls of the faithful who are placed in purgatory to purge them of all the rust and stains of sin of which they have not rid themselves in this life. And since this soul, placed by the divine fire in this loving purgatory, was united to that divine love and content with all that was wrought in her, she understood the state of the souls who are in purgatory. And she said, "The souls who are in purgatory cannot, as I understand, choose but be there. And this is by God's ordinance, who therein has done justly. They cannot turn their thoughts back to themselves. Nor can they say, 'Such sins I have committed, for which I deserve to be here,' nor, 'I would that I had not committed them, for then I would go now to paradise,' nor, 'That one will leave sooner than I,' nor, 'I will leave sooner than he.' They can have neither of themselves nor of others any memory whether of good or evil, whence they would have greater pain than they suffer ordinarily. So happy are they to be within God's ordinance, and that he should do all which pleases him, as it pleases him, that in their greatest pain they cannot think of themselves. They see only the working of the divine goodness, which leads man to itself mercifully, so that he no longer sees aught of the pain or good which may befall him. Nor would these souls be in pure charity if they could see that pain or good. They cannot see that they are in pain because of their sins. That sight they cannot hold in their minds, because in it there would be an active imperfection, which cannot be where no actual sin can be. Only once, as they pass from this life, do they see the cause of the purgatory they endure. Never again do they see it, for in another sight of it there would be self. Being then in charity, from which they cannot now depart by any actual fault, they can no longer will nor desire save with the pure will of pure charity. Being in that fire of purgatory, they are within the divine ordinance, which is pure charity, and in nothing can they depart thence, for they are deprived of the power to sin, as of the power to merit. I believe no happiness can be found worthy to be compared with that of a soul in purgatory, except that of the saints in paradise. And day by day this happiness grows as God flows into these souls, more and more as the hindrance to his entrance is consumed. Sin's rust is the hindrance, and the fire burns the rust away, so that more and more the soul opens itself up to the divine inflowing. But, on the other hand, they endure a pain so extreme that no tongue can be found to tell it, nor could the mind understand its least pang if God by special grace did not shew so much, which least pang God of his grace shewed to this soul, but with her tongue she cannot say what it is. This sight which the Lord revealed to me has never since left my mind, and I will tell what I can of it. They will understand, whose mind God deigns to open. So as you can see, there's a pretty stark contrast between these two purgatories. The Purgatory of Medjugorje is a dark, ashy, grey place full of pain, overwhelming loneliness, and a kind of blind suffering, insofar as the people there are literally thrashing and hitting each other. I found it odd that 2 of the seers were able to hear, but not see the people there, and that the third was able to see, but not hear them. It seems like an inconsistency, though one might argue that Mary was simply trying to illuminate different aspects of purgatory. The muddled and grey visuals give a sense of being lost and suffering in darkness. The visuals of the people shivering, thrashing, and writhing in pain give a sense of coldness and of a kind of lonely, torturous suffering. Compare this to St. Catherine of Genoa's experience. First, the only visual description St. Catherine gives is that of fire. There's a sense of a literal burning purification, to purge them of all the rust and stains of sin of which they have not rid themselves in this life. And this makes a lot of sense. Traditionally, purgatory has always been described as a place of fire, and the idea of refining souls in this manner is very scriptural. And he shall sit refining and cleansing the silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and shall refine them as gold, and as silver, and they shall offer sacrifices to the Lord in justice. Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3. There is no sense of a refining fire in the Purgatory of Medjugorje, just a bleak, grey suffering shrouded in some kind of metaphorical mist. They are so lonely that it is almost sickening to remember those moments I was there. The second and perhaps most notable contrast in the 2 views of purgatory is the intense joy that is described by St. Catherine of Genoa. I believe no happiness can be found worthy to be compared with that of a soul in purgatory, except that of the saints in paradise. And day by day this happiness grows as God flows into these souls, more and more as the hindrance to his entrance is consumed. Of course, she goes on to say that the suffering they endure is unimaginable and can't be described with words. But there's something beautiful about the idea that the soul is filled with joy as she experiences those obstacles to heaven being burned away, as painful as the burning is. There's a sense of joyful anticipation as they draw nearer and nearer to their beloved, to the point where St. Catherine literally says they are happier than anyone on earth. Another Catherine, St. Catherine of Siena, is also quoted with saying, "I do not think that apart from the felicity of heaven, there can be a joy comparable to that experienced by the souls in purgatory. An incessant communication from God renders their joy more vivid from day to day, and this communication becomes more and more intimate, to the extent that it consumes the obstacles still existing in the soul." Now again, think about the suffering of the souls in the Medjugorje purgatory. Truly, there is no sense of hope or joy described by any of the visionaries. Again, it's all very bleak and dark, and the memory of it is so horrible it makes one feel sick. The souls there hardly seem to have any hope or joy of a final heavenly destination. In fact, it sounds a lot more like some descriptions of hell than purgatory. "But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into the exterior darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Matthew chapter 8, verse 12. Maria. Now they suffer so intensely because they recognize how much they have hurt God, how many chances they had on earth, and how many times they disregarded God. St. Catherine of Genoa. They cannot turn their thoughts back to themselves, nor can they say, "Such sins I have committed for which I deserve to be here." They cannot see that they are in pain because of their sins. That sight they cannot hold in their minds because in it there would be an active imperfection, which cannot be where no actual sin can be. In St. Catherine's purgatory, the souls are mercifully spared from the remembrance of their sins. In the Medjugorje purgatory, this is evidently not the case. The Medjugorje description of purgatory seems to give an eerie suggestion that a soul might end up stranded there for the rest of eternity. While it doesn't say that explicitly, the language they use surely seems to suggest it. Vishka. The Blessed Mother told us we should be praying for souls stranded in purgatory. She said only our prayers and sacrifices can release them from that place. The people there are helpless. This, of course, would be completely theologically incorrect. It's not possible for a soul to be stuck in a kind of eternal purgation. Eventually, the soul would be made clean and brought into heaven, whether or not someone else prayed for it. Of course, it is taught that our prayer does help alleviate the suffering of the souls in purgatory and get them out of there sooner rather than later. But the idea that a soul is stranded there until someone prays for it is again quite absurd. I'm going to end this video with 2 more quotes about Our Lady, from the visionary Saint Bridget of Sweden. Our Lady said to Saint Bridget, "I am also the mother of all those in purgatory, for all the pains they must suffer for the purification of their sins are in some way mitigated because of my prayers at any time. Thus it pleases God to decrease some of the punishments due them according to the strictness of divine justice. Hear now how much my Son honored my name. My name is Mary. As it is said in the Gospel, those within the fire of purgatory rejoice exceedingly, just like a sick and bedridden man does if he receives a word of comfort that pleases his soul. He is suddenly overjoyed." There is honestly so much more to unpack with the visions of purgatory, but that is a video for another time. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Remember to pray your rosary, and that De Maria numquam satis.